he is probably the most polished receiver I've seen in the last 10 years come to Iowa. I don't know how we got him. Welcome back to the ANF Podcast, where we cover Iowa sports, and welcome to Season 2 of the pod. We're really lucky to start the season with our favorite breakdown we did last year, which was drafting the incoming recruiting class, or the 2024 class. And we're going to be drafting these players based on their NFL potential, what we anticipate them to do at Iowa, and maybe even production for next year as their true freshman year. It's also our first time having a guest on the show. We have Eliot joining us from Rivals. Really talented guys. We're lucky that he made the trip up to Minneapolis. Really looking forward to breaking down these recruits. And I think this pod's been in the works for almost a year now.
We've been talking about it for a while.
Definitely.
Yeah. You said one of our favorite segments or whatever, and I thought you were going to say joined by our favorite writer. So not a great start to the pod, but we'll be okay.
We'll bounce back.
So initial thoughts on the 2024 recruiting class?
Yeah. So this is the first class that I covered fully as a recruiting analyst at Rivals, first full class. I started right in January of 2023, so that class is pretty much locked up. Mm-hmm. I think they added Grant Leeper a little bit late. Yeah. But other than that, that class was pretty much done. Obviously, you had Keeter, you had John Nestor, some of those names that Hawkeye fans know now. Keeter obviously didn't see the field as much as some of us probably would have thought in his freshman year. But this 24 class, it's a typical Iowa class in that it has a lot of those 3-star guys that you look at. Yeah. You can see it, but they're not quite there yet. But it also has the typical 4-star lineman that sees Iowa as lineman U, so to speak, with Cody Fox, with Will Nolan. Of course, we're going to get to names a little bit sooner, or a little bit later. But this class, I think, has probably, in looking at some of the names again that we're going to talk about in a moment, probably a higher ceiling than maybe one would look at initially. Like. I don't want to say any names yet. I don't want to spoil.
Yeah. But I think he's right, though. I think looking at just, rankings in general, I remember coming into this review process and be like, this is going to be a lower tier Iowa class. Mm-hmm. We were probably within our first 8 tapes, you watch the top 8 guys right away. We're like, oh shit, we might have something here. Mm-hmm. I think from just a needs perspective, I was in desperate need of some playmakers, and we might have actually grabbed some. And that's going to be, you talk about freshman production. Freshman skill players are usually where you see guys step in right away and make plays. So that could be a huge addition to what we're seeing in the 2024 season.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. The top end guys, you don't really have that feel that there's like 4 or 5 of them that are, these true 4 stars that are going to play right away.
National recruits too.
National recruits. But the depth of the class is really where this shines. And we're going to be drafting 15 players in this draft. And truly, I feel like all 15 that we're going to draft could play at one point in Iowa. They could play in their junior year or redshirt sophomore year. And I think that's really what excites me about this class is that when we get past the top 4 or 5, or we're like, this guy's bona fide and we really want to draft him, I go through 6 through 15, and I have a hard time making decisions based on that all these guys can play. And since they're different positions, you have a hard time evaluating the same way. So it makes it a really fun exercise to go through 6 through 15.
The other thing that I'll add is, we know Iowa, I don't think it'd shock anybody if one of us picked Reese in this 15.
Yeah,
truly.
Right?
Yeah.
That makes it hard because just this sheer talent and the sheer productivity that has come through. Who would have thought one of us would draft Torrey Taylor in something like this, whatever it was, 4 or 5 years ago. But looking back, you have to make that pick, right?
Yeah. So maybe the most impactful player of the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Or I guess 4, he played 4. But
I did my entire evaluation without doing the punter. I was like, I'm just going to not include the punter. And I was like, it was 30 minutes ago. I was like, I should have included the punter. He has an NFL ceiling that the rest of these guys do. If we're drafting NFL talent.
Yeah.
This guy's
and there's a lot of ways where Iowa builds their entire scheme around the punter. Mm-hmm. And special teams.
Hopefully you don't necessarily have to do that with Tim Lester.
Maybe
Tim Frederick Lester coming in. Please. It was just, you don't get a punter drafted in the 4th round unless you're Iowa, ahead of Iowa State's top draft pick.
Which is a shame.
It's a shame. We hate to see it.
Sprinkle that in there.
But without further ado, since Eliot is the guest on the podcast, we're going to let him take the first pick. No pressure at all. Going to be watching this for years to come.
Right. So I know last year, we were just talking about this off mic. The pick was a little bit of a surprise to me, but again, not knowing the class as well as I maybe would have otherwise had I started a little bit earlier with Zach Lutmer going 1.
Mhm.
Again, we can see it a little bit now. Of course, Coach Parker talking about it. Like he'll drop in something about a safety or a DB a few years, and then Cooper DeJean shows up, right?
Right,
yeah.
Like so, I'm not saying Zach Lutmer is going to be Cooper DeJean, right? Like,
But he will-
we can see
You can
why.
extrapolate, yeah.
Yeah. So this is something I've been thinking about for a little while because we've been texting about this. We've been planning it. I haven't been thinking about it for a year, but we've been planning this for a little while.
Yeah.
And I think I might surprise you guys. There are a couple that I considered. Of course, you look at the 4 stars first, right?
Mhm.
Like, and it might not be all that sexy. They're offensive linemen, right? Of course, Iowa hasn't had the greatest offensive line production in the last few years.
Yep.
But I went the direction of playmaker, of potential contributor quickly,
Mhm.
and NFL, like you guys mentioned. And I couldn't go every single one of those routes without thinking about Jaylen Watson.
Mhm.
This kid was initially a receiver. What?
Damn it.
He was initially a receiver. All of his other offers were at receiver. West Virginia, Cincinnati. I'm trying to think of who else. I think Minnesota was a player. in his
Maryland got in
recruitment.
there too.
Was Maryland? Yeah, they got in. I think they got in late.
Yeah.
But he goes and camps at Iowa, and I recognize he's the nephew of Fred Russell, former Iowa.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
Fun
former
fact.
Iowa running back. Fun fact. Posted about it on Twitter and ended up talking to him a little bit about it. But he said when he was growing up, talking with his uncle, it was always Iowa, Iowa, Iowa. So he's kind of inundated with Iowa growing up and being a kid that loved football, and grows up his whole life playing receiver. Thought that's what he was going to be. Goes and camps at Iowa at DB. I believe it was Phil Parker told him, if you come here, you're going to play defensive back.
Yep.
We need you to know that you're going to play defensive back. It won't be any of this wishy-washy,
Mhm.
potentially playing
We'll
wide
see,
receiver.
Yeah.
He shows up at camp, playing a position he's almost never played before, gets the offer
Mm.
from Phil Parker,
Right.
right? And then he transfers for his senior year to Central Catholic in Toledo, balls out on both sides of the field.
Mm.
He's a playmaker. I mean, there's also reasons why he got offers at wide receiver,
Mhm.
right? Because anytime you put the ball in his hands, good things happen.
Yep.
Whether it's a pick, punt return, kick return, playing as a receiver, what have you. Tyler Barnes told us on a video call when they made the signing class, like when signing day happened, and said he could play receiver for us too if we wanted him to,
Mhm.
and he could, and it might be
2-1.
something a need that you
Yeah.
have. But this is a guy that you can put out play gunner, go out and play gunner on special teams.
Mm.
I mean, I think eventually he could return punts and
Punts, yeah.
kicks. I don't. That's not going to be something he does right away because you gotta
Yeah.
work your way into that. But he allowed 1 catch all of his senior year
Wow.
while playing both sides of the field.
Yeah.
This is a kid who is a fluid athlete, who is, like I said, a playmaker. He's got great ball skills after playing wide receiver for so long.
Mhm.
And he actively made the choice to play a position that he hasn't regularly played because he wants to be taught by Phil Parker.
Yeah.
This is a kid, I said it on our pod after the signing day, that you can tell Jaylen Watson loves football. And he immediately connected with Cooper DeJean and Xavier Wampa on his visit. I think Xavier was his host. And this is a guy that wants to talk football, that wants to be on the field as much as possible. This is ultimately my number 1 pick for all the 3 reasons that we've listed,
Mhm.
but also because he loves football.
Yeah.
Like it's just became an easy choice the more and more I thought about it.
Well, for Kyle and I, like we both had him as, after we watched our film the last 2 days, we're like, he might be number 1.
Mhm.
And we had done that exercise a couple times. And it's so cool because like we just had guessed that was the conversation they had, where it's like, listen, you could be a hell of a college receiver. You can go out and you can make plays for 3 or 4 years. The odds of you making the jump to the NFL at your size, speed, weight, all that stuff, it's not that high. But you're going to go out and be a playmaker in college football. That's a hell of an opportunity. What Iowa's done, you can point to so many parts of Iowa's legacy. Desmond King, Cooper DeJean, just routinely putting guys that are true playmakers. Both guys just listed punt returners, some of the best punt returners in Iowa's history. Those guys could have been, fringe NFL skill players. definitely have all the talent in the world, but then you put them on the defensive side of the ball and they become guys who make $40 million. And that's something where if you get a guy in the room and you could say to an 18-year-old, say, you could be a hell of a receiver for us, but I know there's something else in you.
Yeah.
And that's where, you become a DB now.
Yeah. And if Phil Parker's telling you that, I mean, could you imagine a more powerful voice to sway your opinion of how you view your recruitment? You're like, I'm being told by probably the most respected guy in any defensive back room in the country.
Assistant coach in the country.
Right.
Our Broyles Award, right?
Yeah. And I think the only thing that holds me back on him is just his size. And it's because it's a transition for Iowa to have a 5'11" corner. Because we have such a cover 4 system, zone-based system, where the flats are really a difficult place to cover at that size. Because not only do you have to play through a receiver that could be 6'1", 6'2", and strong, you have to get around that block, then you have to make a tackle. And I think the one thing on his film that kind of held me back was just his size of him as a corner. But I don't think Iowa's ever had this big of a freak, athleticism-wise, fluidity, and speed, where we can go man a lot more often. And he reminds me so much of Ambry Thomas from Michigan from a few years back. He's on the 49ers now. It's like 6'1", 6 foot, 5'11" build, and just super fluid. And so he's going to be a different type of cornerback for Iowa, but he can be a cornerback Phil's truly never been able to use before, because you have this, he can run with anybody type of speed and athleticism.
I think it's shown just a shift in, I was talking about this before the pod with Kyle, but the shift in recruiting for DBs. We used to grab, big safeties. Jamari Harris, he played corner in high school, but he's just not a typical corner build. It's the reason he's a 2-star recruit out of high school. A lot of guys you wouldn't just typically see as a corner. Micah Hyde, a lot of guys who haven't getting converted to safety, but you have TJ Hall, you have Deshaun Lee, you have now Jaylen Watson, and they've gone to this smaller, more scatty build where I think what they're just seeing is the evolution of college football, where you're going to play these super high-end throwing teams. You're going to play Ohio State, you're going to play Penn State, Michigan, now Washington, USC, and you're going to need a guy who can guard some dude in the slot who's 5'10" and runs a 4.3. Mm-hmm. So you have to at least evolve where you at least have this man piece. Mm-hmm. And that might be a thing where we throw him out as a true freshman. I like the early playing time part too, because as a true freshman, who can you throw out in dime?
Yep. That's
going to be able to run with every single guy on the field. You had, TJ Hall was kind of that guy prior to that, where he went guard Charlie Jones on the road at Purdue, but you don't really have that scatty speed demon that can match any dude that the best teams are going to put on the field.
Yeah, I think dime is where we'll see him initially, and I think we should move on now.
Yeah.
Well,
great time on. Yeah, one more point.
You mentioned making the tackle in the flat. Mm-hmm. The first person I thought of was Deshaun Lee. And then you said Deshaun Lee. So that's something that I think, but he's also probably going to be bigger than Deshaun Lee. So I want to see him more on the defensive side of the ball, though he did do it his senior year, like I mentioned, only allowing the one catch. So it's hard not to be excited. About Jaylen Watson.
Yeah, great pick.
The whole time we're watching, like, why isn't that playing receiver?
It's always so talented.
Yeah,
but
that's what's beautiful about the Iowa program, though. It's like it's player focused, it's developmental focused. They know it's better for their team to have that receiver, but they know for the kid, DB is where he should be.
Yeah, that's where the money is.
Yeah.
We are happy to announce a new sponsor for the ANF Podcast. The ANF Podcast is sponsored by Eye Surgeons Associates, proudly serving Eastern Iowa and Western Illinois for all your eye care needs for over 40 years.
All right, well, I thought this guy would be off the board. Jaylen Watson was like 3, but this is one of my top 2. I think just like in terms of ceiling is Gavin Hoffman. When I first watched him, I thought Laporta. Like, this is our classic receiving tight end. We'll bring in a receiving tight end and a blocking tight end. And Burt this year is our blocking in line. He's already 230 at 6'6". He's going to be that great mold. But Hoffman initially thought Laporta, but now after watching him a few more times, Noah Fant keeps on creeping up my mind. He's not so much the lateral player that Laporta was. He's super north and south. But when he goes, it looks like at his size, at 6'5", he could play nearly power 5 receiver at that size.
He did used to play receiver.
Yeah, his junior year film, he was even faster.
Yep.
At that, like 200 pounds. And then he kind of kept on putting on weight. But he's just too fluid, and he honestly has a stride very similar to Gronk. I know you don't want to compare somebody,
it's 18-year-old to Gronk. Like watching like a Gronk Kelsey like mold.
But the way he
very
moves
odd,
and like even his
you
like
can see it,
the way he catches the ball, I'd be very surprised if this guy's not a top 3 round pick in the NFL draft.
Well, and like
within 4 years, I'd say as a true senior, redshirt junior, this guy's number one one of the top 3 tight ends coming out for the league.
I think early playing time too. Like you're just gonna be able to utilize him as kind of a bastard tight end where you're on the line of scrimmage, but you're 3 or 4 yards outside. You have the out route to your expenditure. You can run a post with him or a flag with him. Athleticism is never gonna be a problem with him, which means he's gonna get on the field early. Didn't really see a lot of blocking tape, and like we have Michael Burt in the class, and Burt's already 230, and he's like you can tell he's gonna put on another 20 pounds pretty comfortably. So are we going to have this thing where it's Cale Vanderbush versus Addison Ostrenga? Ostrenga becomes more of the blocking tight end. He gets on the field faster. Vanderbush, who ended up at Indiana State, was one of those guys that we had gone back previously and looked at him like, this guy is just a deer. But I think you're right, though. Gavin, it's just going to take weight for him. So we might not see him early in that facet.
I think next year, 2 years from now, redshirt freshman year, I think we'll see him. And honestly, Lachey kind of clears out the room. When he leaves, it's Ostrenga, and then we liked Leaper. We liked Ortworth. We weren't super pumped on them. So there's an opportunity for Hoffman to come in right away and be that receiving threat next to Ostrenga.
Yeah. I like that for a variety of reasons. Enrolled early and has put on weight. That's been something that's noticeable for me.
Really?
He was a guy that had, I think he went on an official to Missouri and Arizona State, and chose Iowa because they didn't BS him in his recruitment process and said, you're going to have to come in and work. And that's what he wanted to hear. And what did he do? He's already started to work. And like I said, at the spring game, I saw him and I was like, is that Gavin Hoffman? he's put on some weight. That was something that he really struggled to do in high school too. And they've already started doing that. He had that drop in the spring game. I don't know if you guys saw anything. No. Okay. It was late. He was working with some of the threes, the fours, and it's his first spring game. Like I'm sure he was nervous. So that's nothing that I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
What I will say, and he was under consideration for me as the number 1 pick here. I wrote about him in a couple things that we wrote post signing day for this class, and we did 2 players we're most excited about in the class, and Gavin Hoffman was one of mine. And I said that for all the reasons that you listed, right? Like he's now significantly bigger than, significantly. He's gained weight. And he's maintained that athleticism. The catch radius is a big thing. Like you mentioned, Sam Laporta split him out. Not going to be huge in terms of blocking. I guess not that I'm like nervous about it. And I don't want anybody else to be nervous about it, but your flipping scheme, right? With this new offensive coordinator. I think Luke Lachey had 1 catch in the spring game. So I mean, it's just something that I'm aware of. I mean, I don't think Iowa's going to lose the tight end university rep by any means. Yeah. But it's something that I noticed and that I'm aware of.
And what happened this year, right? It would be Lester's first year. You would have a production dip.
Right.
And then the classes 2 years from now would then not have the same selling point. And so we'll know it in 2 years, but it could be, there's a reality where he just doesn't use them as effectively.
Right. But frankly, a flip is not the end of the world too.
Right.
Because recruiting receiver talent at the college football level is imperative. Recruiting QBs at the highest level, you need receivers to play.
And didn't we talk about it? I know that I picked up that it was like the coaching, whatever. I sent it to you guys. Tim Lester was talking about the RPO for second, third level RPOs. And I think there was one portion where the tight end was involved. It just wasn't that frequent.
It's a slip.
Right.
It's not a vertical shot because linebackers can see them.
Yep.
So it always has to be to the flats. Yep. So it's not really as aggressive as a play as a receiver can come behind those guys.
This will be a big indicator on how much of the old Kirk playbook stays around too. Are we going to see our typical outside zone boot action where you can use tight ends effectively, but again, a big guy catching the ball going laterally at 10 yards, that's 10 yards. It always is 10 yards. And that's why you've seen the stagnant offense we have.
At the same time, what we've heard from Tim Lester to this point is something that we haven't heard from the previous administration, so to speak, was he always mentioned being aggressive and he always mentioned adjustments. What a foreign concept, right? So I think though he is bringing in this new scheme that he wants, they brought in Jacob Gill and they've tried to get Raylan Sharp, right? Another small receiver, even though they have Caleb Brown and TJ Washington. TJ making the flip from running back to wide receiver and Caden Weegan.
Mm-hmm.
They want possession receivers, right? And so as far as I can tell, that is an emphasis for him. And of course, who is Sky Moore?
Yeah.
That was his guy, right? In Western Michigan. But at the same time, I think Tim Lester's smart enough to say Luke Lachey is probably the most talented player we have on the offense. We should find a way to get him the ball.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, and if that's what happens with Gavin Hoffman, that's what happens with Gavin Hoffman. I don't think Tim Lester is so married to the scheme that he won't go to somebody who's abundantly talented and going to provide them opportunities to win games.
Definitely.
Right?
No, it'll be an interesting development. That's probably the biggest question mark going into the season is how do you use your best players within an RPO scheme?
Yeah.
It's a strong deviation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to take
pick 3?
Yep. So Connor's got 2 in a row here.
Yeah. So I actually had this guy at 1, and it's just because of high-end potential. So Joseph Anderson is the pick. I haven't seen a guy with his get off within the Iowa program since we started following recruiting, strongly about 10 years ago. You compare him immediately to an Anthony Nelson, speed, athleticism, length. But I think there's even a step up from where we had Anthony Nelson. I think he's just first round potential. You're going to have to put it on, obviously on, 60 pounds. And how well he carries that weight is going to be a large indicator of where he's at. But he has just that natural spring to him. Mm-hmm. And what I like about it is, the personality that comes along with a kid like this. So you're not going to recruit a defensive player that is ego driven. Mm-hmm. It's essentially how they shape their recruiting processes. They get guys who are going to play team ball. So you have a guy who is 6'6" and potentially, first round athleticism, but then, he's also got the Iowa mentality.
Yeah.
And you mix those two things together and they're going to teach him the correct way. He's going to be taught perfectly.
Yeah.
So
I'll pick up on that. I think his first step is, like you mentioned, the best I've seen from any Iowa defensive end recruit other than maybe Epineza. And Epineza's a 5-star.
Yeah.
I think there's reality. If this kid's 30 pounds bigger, he's a top 50 recruit in the country based on how quick he is. His track numbers just came out. I had no idea about those numbers, but it shows up so consistently on film. This is athleticism he has.
22 feet at 6'6" is
It's insane. But what he does the best, what I would caution, I wanted him maybe 1 for a long time. He does have an adjustment to make, though, is that he plays around players. He does not play through them. So he should. It's a strength in high school. He's quicker, faster, slipperier. Yeah. That's what he should be doing. But to make that adjustment to Iowa, we want our DNs bull rushing and playing their offensive players head up 80% of the plays, and especially our DNs. We do not want you dipping your shoulder and getting around them on a run play. And so he has a big adjustment to put on weight and then also have that style where, I'm going to nose with you. I'm not trying to bend around you. On third down, he's the best natural pass rusher Iowa's had since Anthony Nelson, I'd say, on just film. But that is one key adjustment he needs to make, is to learn how to bull rush and lock out, which he has the best coaching staff, room, and bell to teach him to do that over the next 4 years. So, but definitely NFL, just screams it if he puts on 30 to 40 pounds.
So I'll read his track stuff from this. By the way, going to be on the track team at Iowa. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Really?
Yep. Going to run hurdles.
Wow.
I think he might jump too because, these numbers are really good. 14.38 in the 110 high hurdles, 22.3 in long jump, and over 49 feet in triple jump.
Wow.
I don't know jack squat about triple jump being from Iowa, but at the same time, 22.3 and 14.38 at 6'6", 220 plus pounds.
Yeah.
You can't teach that.
My wife triple jumped and long jumped at Virginia, and I ran those numbers by her, and she goes, "Okay,
okay,
yeah. That's really good."
The other thing too about him being a little bit more raw, running around guys and stuff like that, he's only been playing football for 3 years.
Yep.
He's the son of an NFL player. I couldn't tell you who. Anderson, a pretty common last name.
Yeah.
But I see everything that you guys see. It's the quick twitch. It's the get off. And he had offers from Nebraska wanted him really bad. Kansas wanted him really bad. Kansas State wanted him bad. I'm not sure if he had a Missouri offer or not either. I can look at that. But this was another one that I thought about too. He was not number 1 on my list, obviously, going after Jaylen Watson. But you got the length. You got the other thing too. You might not be able to teach the physicality quite as much as some of the other technical things when it comes to football. Because it's like some kids, they love how physical the game is. Maybe you can teach that to Jeffrey, but him being only 3 years into the game of football, he doesn't have those bad habits. Right. I mean, he might have some bad habits, but you can quickly teach him out of them as opposed to a kid who's been playing for 10 years.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, who has been able to get success just by being more athletic than everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So that's a positive that comes with him being so fresh to the game.
In the pipeline of D ends over the last few years, Nelson, Golston, Epineza, Van Ness, like it's quietly becoming one of Iowa's best rooms. And if you have maybe the twitchiest of all time coming through it, it's hard not to see him playing.
Yeah, just go back to the teaching part of it. You give a guy, it's just, you have clay. What can they mold over the next 4 to 5 years? And I think it's their, potentially most athletic recruit they've ever had in that space. And then again, if they're recruiting off mentality and personality, you mold those two things together and you let them cook for 3 years. I think there's no ceiling for him. That's where I would say one is just because like I could truly see him being a guy where he's just a no-brainer first-round pick one day. And that's a large leap, but
there's some base to that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's time to.
So my next one would be, and this is going strictly off of just immediate impact. I think Brevin Doll can play tomorrow for the Iowa offense. And Kyle's going to disagree with me on this. We've had a lot of discussions about this, but I think especially within the skill room in the college level, the fastest guy in the room gets certain plays drawn up for him. You have your wheel routes, you have your speed outs, you have, just your straight goes to the sideline for a running back out of play action, out of shotgun. I think he's just going to be utilized instantly in that way. And he's shown in his tape where he actually has decent receiver skills. He's not a running back who's going to struggle to make that transition. And truly, I would like to see him just play receiver. I think that's an easiest way to get him involved. We don't have a go guy on the team. You don't have a 4-3 anywhere in the receiver room. So having that constant threat, it would make defenses, it would dictate coverage a lot where you're just like, okay, he's out there. We can't be sitting in some aggressive set. We can't be going zero coverage. He could beat us for 70. I think as a combo punch, we talk about how Iowa doesn't have a lot of counters. That inherent, like deep in the defensive coordinator's mind about how he wants to call a game, having a dude where he goes, that guy runs a 4-3. That guy runs a 10-4, 100 out wide. That could always just, benefit you in the long run.
Yeah. And I like Dole. Big fan of him. We've just had this discussion about the next pick, and I want KJ Parker. That's who I'm like. I think KJ Parker on just a natural, like what the impact will be next year will be incredible. We can go more in detail later. I think Dole's got 5 guys who have carries ahead of him going into this year. And you talk about 4-3 speed and you talk about top end speed. We got that guy, Caleb Johnson. You're gonna draw up a speedy running play. We have Caleb Johnson for all those plays. So unless he goes down, I don't see him in the backfield. But then you make the point about the receiver aspect of it, where you have him as a gadget guy. He's a jet sweep guy. He's the wheel route guy out of the backfield. I can see that, and I'm okay with that.
You motion a 5 wide out of base,
right?
And you get him outside on a linebacker, and you run him deep.
Yeah,
and basic like gadget stuff.
Yeah, he's the fastest player on the team. 10-4, 100 is flying. That is 4-3. It is insane.
How much? He's what? 190 right now too.
Oh, I'd have to. I
think they have. I mean, granted, these are always off by a little bit, but still, like if he's 175, he's running to 190
in
10-4. That's insane.
Yeah, and so he's got serviceable size.
I'm sure you guys saw the pictures of him at State Track. Like he's
juiced up.
Yeah. It's funny. We went through all the pronunciations, and I looked over this one, Brevin Doll. Like a baby doll.
Of course it would be.
We thought we had this one for sure. Like that's no problem.
So to continue a little bit, you mentioned your wife jumping. I think I've told you guys I walked on it. You and I for track.
Yeah.
400 was my main event, but I ran the 100 at the State Track meet as well. Brevin's almost a full second faster than me. Wow. I ran 11.25, but.
Well, to give context, sub 12 is fast.
For 2A.
Fast.
You're the fastest kid alive.
Yeah. So, and that was my first year running it too. So, but I was hoping Brevin was going to fall to me for my second pick too, for all the reasons that you mentioned too, of course. To me, it's like, okay, no, he's not Cooper DeJean, but like keep going back to Cooper, but like what Cooper could have been offensively, that's what you look at Brevin and potentially hope he could be. Is he could do all these things. He can do a jet sweep. He can run deep. And like, that's going to be a part of Tim Lester's offense too, is you have to have the deep threat. And the reason opposing defenses, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons opposing defenses have just been able to clog the box is because you don't have a deep threat, and you almost refuse to throw to a deep threat if you had one at Iowa the last several years. But Brevin's just like, there are things that folks can be limited by in terms of that players can be limited by in terms of like genetics and all these things. Brevin has been gifted genetically in terms of speed, and also like you got to credit work ethic too, right? Yeah. Obviously, like you don't just run a 10-4 off genetics, but I think you flip him to wide receiver almost immediately. I mean, you've got another running back in this class, right? And Xavier Williams.
I like him a lot too.
And yeah, he reminds me of LaShawn Daniels. And of course, we might get to him eventually, but I think considering right now they've got 5 scholarships receivers, they're going to have 7 in the fall. And if you add Caden Weegan in that, I mean, he's not technically scholarship, but he's going to play, right? So you got eight guys that you can, that you could hopefully play. Who knows if KJ Parker's going to play right away? Who knows if Reisz is going to play right away? And we don't really know what Jarriett Bowie or Dayton Howard are yet, right? Like Jarriett Bowie saw snaps last year, but never caught a ball. Alex Moda never caught a ball and got a scholarship to Texas. Or sorry, not Alex Moda. Jacob Bostic never caught a ball and got a scholarship to Texas A&M too. Yeah. So Alex Moda, he was in a wrap at the spring game and at the open practice that media got to go to. So I don't know what's going on there. Kirk said that everybody is expected to be good to go come fall camp. So again, I don't know a ton about that, but I think you almost have to flip Brevin to receiver right away. But then again, like I said, you've got the speed guys, you've got the slot guys where you need help is on the outside. And Brevin can be that just simply based on speed. But at the same time, he can be that position type of receiver where you just get him the ball in space and say, go.
And I think that's, that receiver, discussion, I think it's where I'm going to go for KJ Parker. I think I'm the next pick, right?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. I love this guy. I watched him probably 6 months ago as classic Iowa receiver tape. I'm not going to be that concerned. I'm just going to turn it on. All right, he catches a touchdown. It's an 80-yard bomb. It has been like that for 4 or 5 years where you just don't watch the receivers closely because there's usually it's a 3-minute film and it's like 2 or 3 touchdowns.
And half my blocking,
And half my blocking.
Yep.
You turn on Parker's and the stats pop up right away. 17 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards receiving, over like 20 yards a catch as a junior in a super high league in Illinois. Like really high level.
IC Catholic Prep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good football program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you see the first 5 plays, he houses everything, but it's the plays later in the film that really catch your attention. He is probably the most polished receiver I've seen in the last 10 years come to Iowa. I don't know how we got him because get that NIL bag ready for next year.
For Kevin Copeland, because as I watch this tape, and then I like Reese a lot too, Vanderzee, I couldn't believe, I was like, it's not Copeland's fault that we had no quarterback play for 4 seasons straight.
Yeah.
He brought in Keegan Johnson, Arlen Bruce, and Brody Brecht in a class.
Yeah.
He's been, then he had the ISM Brandon.
Charlie Jones, Brandon Smith. He's had some good receivers.
He's brought in the talent that is sub-level where we have been from a production standpoint, at least the amount of catches you're getting.
And it makes sense why Parker, wasn't a 4-star or like a high 4-star in my mind. He doesn't have, great size. He's like 5'11". He's like 170. You see him on the top of his, he's housing a 7-yard touchdown run. Those last 20 strides he takes, he's not burning that Doll type of stride where he starts lengthening even down the stretch. So you don't have this crazy athlete at receiver. And usually receivers, like, you got to be freaky to get a 4-star. You got to be popping out the film. But if you watch his film closely, cuts on 1 foot every time. Like, he can pop any direction off 1 step, which is super important for a receiver. He snags the ball in a way that he's preparing to run after he catches. He's setting his feet up to dodge a linebacker. And I think 2 plays really stood out. The first one was, it's a cover 2 look. You have a short corner and you have a deep safety. And he dives, he has just a straight fly, but he needs to hit a pocket behind the corner in front of the safety. and he gets behind the corner, pops in, catches the ball, and is already setting his hips up to dive around the safety. And it looks like high-level Power 5 receiver play at the high school level. And he's doing it as a junior. And then he has another play where he catches a slant, and he's sensing the linebacker as he's catching it. And he is dodging him before he even catches the ball. It's like that subtleness to his play. And then you see the numbers. You're like, he makes so many subtle plays every play that it adds up that he had some crazy year as a junior. I think, in my opinion, this kid's going to play this year. And by the end of the year, we're going to be asking him to get 40 balls the next year or 60 balls. I think that's where he's sitting. This is my big call, is I think Parker's going to be the most productive kid in this class next year. And by the next following year, 2025 season, we're pounding the table to get this kid the ball.
So in reference to all the production from high school, I mentioned IC Catholic Prep being one of the best programs in Chicago. Mm-hmm. They had a tight end who is now he might have enrolled early. I don't know. Eric Garner, Texas A&M. He had offers from everybody and their mother. Iowa wanted him really bad. I actually future casted him to Iowa, and then he went to Texas A&M, then dropped a bag, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was a 4-star. I mean, you look at him run, and it's like, that's the guy, right? KJ Parker was the guy for them. They also had a running back / linebacker who's committed to Notre Dame, was an Iowa target for a little while, Dominic Hulak, but and like I said, he was playing running back. He's a guy that nobody wanted to tackle, right? Mm-hmm. But who is the feature of the offense?
Right.
KJ Parker. Because it's kind of similar to the Jaylen Watson thing, right? Like, you put the ball in his hands and good things happen. Mm-hmm. And this is the type of receiver, though Tim Lester wasn't around for his recruitment or whatever. Oh, Tim Lester's going to like this guy. Yeah. His recruitment was really weird. Iowa actually was I think it was the first school to offer him in 2021. I was looking back when I was talking to him about his recruitment and stuff. I'm like, he's not going to Iowa. They offered him as a DB.
Wow.
And then flipped it to wide receiver.
He had 8 picks his sophomore year. So I think that's what we saw. We're like, oh,
right.
Get him on the squad. And then.
Right. Other schools that offered him, it was just like Iowa State and Wisconsin were the only other. I guess Cincinnati offered too. Yeah. And I think it was between Iowa and Cincinnati towards the end of his recruitment. And he ended up making the decision on his official, I believe. But yeah, I mean, this is a kid that put the ball in his hands and good things happen. And I think it's really that simple. Yeah. Like you mentioned all the technical things, but like as a guy who's just like likes to enjoy watching football, right? Yeah. Get the ball, KJ.
Production. Yeah. 100%.
It's funny because we had the exact same arc, because he told me, he's like, take another look at KJ Parker's junior film. Because I originally had not rated him very high. I watched his film a long time ago and wasn't super high in it. Probably just wasn't paying enough attention to it. I might have just been dismissing because he's a receiver recruit in our current offensive state. Obviously not going to be a high-level guy. And then all of a sudden I was 6 minutes in and he ran an out route. And I just texted Kyle, I'm like, I don't know if a guy on the team could run that out route. And he just has that next level, like just football twitch. And as Kyle mentioned, that soft hands, he catches the ball super late in the route. You don't see him sticking his hands out. You can tell
technical.
He's a guy who's played football every single day for 15 years. Yeah. That's all he's done for his entire life.
Yeah.
And you see it in how he runs. And I think he didn't like have some insane 100. I think he ran a 10.9 was what he.
Yeah.
So he's like a 4.5 guy. But the big thing for me is just he's a low strider. And he's going to get taught how to be more technical in his running process. So his top end's going to go up. But when you're that low strider, that's what you want to see in football. You want to see a guy who can go lateral. That's all you have to do. That's where receiver players one is at the top of the route. And he's got all that technical ability you want to see. Definitely. And as Kyle mentioned, it's like I could easily see him playing as a freshman and being a guy that, maybe develops into number 3 right away just because he just makes plays.
Yeah.
And that's what's just a weird part of this class is I did not anticipate walking into like the review process and thinking we might have Doll, Parker, and Hoffman all making plays as freshmen. Hoffman's a lot farther to go just because the guys in front of him, but Doll and Parker, like that could be the Band-Aid this team needs in a bad way. Because before the season, I was saying injury to Caleb Brown and we're back in the Stone Age.
Trouble.
We're right back. But now you have Parker where it's like, I could see him being a feature, even as a true freshman.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't mention about Doll is injury history, unfortunately. Missed more or less all of his junior season of track, had that broken arm in the fall. So I just felt like it's something we should mention. Maybe that comes down to him putting on more weight on that frame, so he's less likely to get hurt. But
Yeah.
That would be something that would concern me in that first year for Brevin, getting on the field that early.
Yeah.
So that's just something to note.
I like that point just for his size. Like,
Right.
he's going to have to
That's
be
why I don't want to play him at running back. Like he is jacked up, but it's like you just want an athlete like that. You want to take out of the backfield. What you want, especially with an Iowa scheme, it's going to be a pound the ball scheme, probably even under Lester, is a guy like Williams, where he's going to be able to endure a full Big Ten season.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather keep Doll healthy rather than use him to the full extent.
The fact that there's 5 guys ahead of him.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like,
that got touches, not just
Yeah.
on the roster, but they gave him a ball.
Right.
I think you got 2 straight here. I think.
Yes, I believe it is me. I am going to go.
This is when it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I think we talked about it at the opening. From here on out, I'm just guessing because I feel comfortable about the rest of the skill, but I think from here on out, it's going to be really difficult.
So I think I have my choice. Derek Weisskopf, taking him right here. So with Weisskopf, what you're getting is probably one of the better athletes the state of Iowa has seen for a while. He just placed at state. I think he just missed placing in all 3 events at Drake as well in shot put, discus, and high jump.
Wow.
Had he probably not done shot or disc, he would have been 3-time state champion in high jump this year. But with scheduling, I think it was the discus that was on the first day. So he threw disc and did shot on the same day. Like, who is doing that? Like, they're not scheduling for Derek Weisskopf, right? No. But he had his PR in high jump is 6'9". He threw 180 something in disc, and I think he's throwing 50 something, maybe close to 60 in shot. Like,
holy cow!
You can't like, who is doing that? Yeah. He's not even doing any running events. Like, and then led his team, which I watched Williamsburg at the state basketball tournament. There was like Derek and a bunch of other 3A athletes, right? Like, you can see the difference between him and everybody else out there. He's got a younger brother too. I don't think his younger brother plays basketball. Dylan, he'll be camping at Iowa this year. But Derek played essentially free safety on the back end of that defense. It was 10, of course, the two corners and the 8 in the box, and then it was just him watching everything.
Yeah.
So. And he also played quarterback this year for a state championship football team. Like, their starting quarterback got hurt, and I think they put in somebody else after that, and they got hurt.
High school.
And then and then they put in Derek, and he took a little while to figure it out. I think his first game was against Solon. That was their only loss. And then he throws, I think, 3 or 4 touchdown passes in the state championship game against Elon. Like, it was take best athlete, put him at quarterback, right? Yeah. And so it's almost like he's an all-American linebacker too. Like, in terms of playing safety on the back end for Williamsburg, it was just like, that's what was best for them. Let him diagnose what's going on and fire after the ball. Right. And prior to playing quarterback, he was playing tight end because tight end / wide receiver. You can block, you get the ball in his hands. Yeah. And
a football player.
Right. Just a football player. And now that he can focus on one sport, right, one position, granted, so he was towards the top of my board too. And the reason I didn't take him is because there are so many linebackers, right?
Yeah. And you can do a big bit on that too, but
2 other linebackers in this class. They might be bringing in 3 in 2025. They've already got 2 locked up. So, like, when is he going to see the field, right? But additionally, with that athleticism, with the fact that he played safety in high school, do you see him playing cash? I don't think he has that type of speed, that type of
That's a good point.
Flip in his hips, but maybe. I mean, like, what can he do, right? Based on all the accomplishments that he had in high school. So I think that's a guy you got to watch in the long term because of just the sheer depth at the linebacker spot.
Yeah, exactly. I think both of us, Kyle and I, both looked at him as maybe the number 1 player in this class. We had him as number 1 a couple of times. We did a lot of flip-flops. But the immediate comparison for me is Ben Neiman. So he was a part of the 2015 Iowa football team, and also Christian Kirksey too. And it's funny you mentioned, so the cash prior to the evolution was an outside linebacker. Ben Neiman and Christian Kirksey were both at Leo linebacker. And it's usually where we put our best athlete. Not usually, it's always where they put their best athlete at. And he just has so many of those attributes where you can see him, flip his hips and run. He's got the high end speed. He's playing safety. I think both those guys played safety in high school as well. But whenever you make plays on the offensive side of the ball and they have you listed as a linebacker, that's usually what I look for. And I just watched like 2 or 3 routes by him and a couple high points. He's got incredible hands for a linebacker. You can utilize that. That skill set is actually very underrated for a linebacker in pass coverage. You can make a play on the ball. You can time something. You can get a big pick. That is something that will get you on the field faster. And then obviously you have the athletic ability and the size. If he wasn't a linebacker, I would have had him higher just because of draft value. I think Jack Campbell, I mean, how many guys have been drafted at his size, even at his 40 time, which is a little slower in the first round. Those other guys we listed, they all have super early playing time or high draft value. So that's the only reason I want to I think we have him at 5.
Yeah.
But he's just super talented.
You could convince me he's the best player in this class.
Yeah.
Like if you tell me in 4 years he's number 1, it was almost like the film. You could see so much like small plays by him. He kept on making like every single play was good, but he didn't have the super splash play. I think you mentioned like he's a multi-sport athlete. Like he's basketball, he's track, he's in football, he's playing multiple like kind of strange positions for him. He's playing safety, probably should have been at linebacker in high school. He'll definitely be a linebacker in college. And so he had moments of like, it didn't look natural, but then he just made the play. And so that was a hard part about projecting him to be NFL, which is like, if I'm going to draft a guy top 3, I'm like, he's for sure NFL. I think he is. I think I see him like a late round pick one day. I think he breaks through the linebacker room like as a junior, as a weak side linebacker. But man, he would have been a perfect Leo. He would have been a perfect Cash. Like, as you mentioned, he's a Neiman clone. He moves just like him. He has the same offense.
Neiman played safety and receiver in high school too,
Mm.
and was like a playmaker.
Made
They
the
thought about
same
him maybe
plays.
playing receiver, and it's like,
Yeah.
you see some of his receiver talents. Like, man, you could have probably used him on the offensive side of the ball too. But
Yeah. Great pick.
it's a great pick. Yeah.
The other thing I would say about the value of the pick is that between the 3 that are in this class, he's the Mike. If that's, we mentioned Cash, we
Yeah.
mentioned Weisskopf, but in terms of just who he is as a person, Cam Buffington and Preston Reese are a little quiet as individuals. And Derek is pretty loose, pretty communicative. That would be something that I could see in his future too. Maybe you guys don't see that in terms of like body composition or anything.
Just the way he's so fluid, you want him on the edge.
Sure.
So like we can talk about Buffington soon, but Buffington's that thumper.
Right.
He reminds me so much of Higgins. Derek's just got that fluidity. You want him at one of those outside backer
And worse, he's
spots.
playing weak. And
Sure.
it's the same type of skill set. You need to tackle just as well as the Mike does.
Yeah.
But he's just so fluid. You want him running as much as you can.
And maybe we're talking about Carson Cooney playing that Mike spot.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The 25 linebacker commit. Look him up.
Exactly.
We'll probably end up talking about it in a little bit here too. But it's me again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Weisskopf was really, really easy choice there.
Great late steal there. That he slipped. He
he
should have
did.
gone higher.
He
We
did.
lost track of him.
I think I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna do rivals some justice here and take a 4-star. I think I'm gonna. It's between Will Nolan and Cody Fox, obviously the only 2 4-stars on the list, but I'm gonna go Will Nolan here.
Great pick.
Dude's a mauler. Like, that's the thing. My one criticism of him when I was first watching his tape was he doesn't move to that second level because he just mauls the first guy and stays on the first guy.
Yeah.
I want to see him go to that second level, but there's a reason he's a 4-star, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is a future NFL draft pick, in my opinion.
Mhm.
I think this is a kid that loves Coach Barnett. Coach Barnett's starting to get his guys in the room, which is really important going forward. And Will Nolan is one of them. This is a kid that I don't want to imagine getting blocked by a guy like this because he will maul you. But I mean, he's got all the attributes that you want. He's got quick feet. He is very strong. That's for sure. He's a thrower too, which is important in my opinion in terms of that explosiveness and stuff like that. So I think Will Nolan is my choice here.
Yeah, it's a great pick. I was going between him and McCaslin. And I see him as a guard. He's close to tackle. He's very close. Like that second level, you wish he was a little smoother in the way he gets up to those second
He's
level.
just a big kid, though.
He's a very big kid for high
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
But when he gets a hold of you, he kills you.
Yeah.
And it looks a lot, I'm going to butcher this name, but David Davidkov, the guy who he was
medically retired.
medically retired 2 years ago. He was a huge offensive tackle recruit from kind of the same area. Something about that area, they develop really technical linemen. Like their stances and the way they punch and that with the tilt they have to them and how they don't get over their toes and they block with their hips, it is really like a level above of how they develop those offensive.
The current guy you compare it to is Bo Steffens, just ox strong, and he has the size to compete right away. So the odds of him making the 2 deep are very high within the first year.
Yeah, I'm gonna go another offensive lineman. Give me Cam Buffington. I watch this guy, and that linebacker room is stacked, and you want him to fall to like 12 or 13 for that reason. But then you throw on the film, and it looks so much like Higgins, where when he gets to you, he thumps you. He doesn't have that crazy acceleration that you would want at a weak side linebacker, where you need to get to that flat area. But he's going to be so protected as a middle linebacker. We allow those guys to always run free. That's the kind of the essence of our defense, is that middle linebackers, they don't have to be burners, and they don't have to get off blocks. But when they get to the backer, the running back or receiver, they murder. And he's just, his entire film is that. Just closing out dudes and completing the tackle.
It reminds me so much of Campbell. I don't think he's at the athletic level that Campbell's
not
at.
the lower body that Campbell
but just when it comes to just putting your face through someone, that's just such a valuable trait where you just see no fear, no hesitation. And like you said, if you can melt a guy at middle linebacker, that's how Higgins has made his money. Higgins is not going to run a good 40.
No, he's not very quick either, but he never misses a tackle. Yeah. And when he hits them, they stop.
If you're the chosen killer, just middle linebacker, it's like we're going to let you be the guy who makes it head on no matter what. That's the guy you want. I think we're all on the same page here too. The linebacker room has been recruited so well over the past years, and I love it's all in-state kids. It's like I think there's like 9 in-state kids now. I don't know how many scholarships.
These 3 within like 30 miles of each other, something crazy like that. Monticello, Williamsburg, and it's what is it? Mountain Way or something tiny. Yeah. They were 8, man. Yeah. Should have won the state title, but Cam got hurt. So, but Winfield, Mount Union.
Yeah, Winfield.
Yep. Yes, I don't know, 30 miles. Iowa geography, but they're all fairly close to each other, fairly close to Iowa City.
Yeah, really. And then you go to the class before Aiden Hall, Ben Keeter. Yeah. And then Nolan. I just watched Nolan DeLong's film back. Sleeper of all sleepers. I have never loved a film more than that kid. He's a preferred walk-on, just absolute psycho.
Out of Durant,
wrestler too, and just mean. Yeah. So, but laterally skilled and like just built like on Hawks. Yeah, I think he's going to play one day. Yeah, but that's the issue. Is you have Van Kekerix. Van Kekerix, another freak too. But it's just there's so many of them. I like. It's funny to think about these kids because they were probably around 9 or 10 years old when Josie Jewell made his run. So it's like you can kind of refer to this like run of 3 classes as like the sons of Josie Jewell because we've never had a middle linebacker to like weak side Leo. All these in-state kids for linebacker. Yeah. But you've had Anger, but like 6 or 7 of them that can play. Right. And they all can play. Yeah. Like Preston Reese, I'm going to take later. I think Preston Reese is a stud. Yeah. And I might fit that Seth Benson role. But you turn on the film, like, where the hell do all these kids come from? They all can run. They're all 6'2" or 6'3", and they're all mean as hell. Yeah. But it's just Iowa football.
You mentioned Buffington not being the athlete of Jack Campbell. Still an athlete.
Yeah. You're not a first-round linebacker.
Right.
Splitting hairs there. The greatest athlete of a generation. You're number 2.
And you can see it. One thing I said previously on our podcast is him playing 8-man football. Like, and the team that he was on at Winfield Mount Union, they had I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but they had a tight end who's committed to Army. Like you have 2 Division I and Cooper Buffington, who's his cousin, who's probably going to play FCS football. Wow. And I don't know how they didn't want a state title other than Cam getting hurt. But there's Cam out there. There's Cooper. There's this other tight end and who had interest from Iowa too. I have to look him up. And then there's kids that look like they're 10 because it's 8-man football. And you take anybody you can get.
Does he have a heartbeat?
But like Cam led them to state basketball too. And I mean, you can see he's a linebacker out on the floor, but he's also throwing down a dunk as a middle linebacker. Yeah. And then state champion in long jump. I think he got hurt in the spring this year, so didn't get to finish out his track senior season. But same time, according to Alyssa Hurdle from the Des Moines Register, she covers recruiting for them. She talked to Cam at state track 2 years ago after he won state in the long jump, and he would have rather talked about football. So like that's just kind of who you're bringing in. He has all those things and has that background. And like what we're talking about a lot in this class, Weisskopf, Vanderzee eventually, Preston, Reese, Cam Buffington is all these small town kids who are playing all the sports.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I think that's, I mean, obviously, like just the athleticism, the traits they bring on the football field are big, but Cooper DeJean's like that sort of mold. Like if you can get however many of those guys in a class and then figure it out with one sport, one position.
Yeah.
Like
They get so much better so fast.
yeah. Aiden Hall too. I mean, yeah.
I have 2 then right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll do one-liners. Preston Reese feels just like a Joe Evans clone. I love the speed. He's got insane tenacity. I think he also could fit into that weak side linebacker build too with Seth Benson being that former QB. I think he's just a football player in general. But you see him come off that edge a couple times, and it's like, man, that 6'2", 6'3" build they like as a stand-up D end, I think could be really high level.
One thing I'll add in quick. I know we're trying to make it quick, but one thing I'll add in quick here is Max Preps Player of the Year, Gatorade Player of the Year in the state, all-time leader in yards. Yeah. I went and watched him this fall. He played quarterback as well as linebacker, so he played every snap. And in the playoffs, it was right before the Dome. They were playing Mediapolis, I think, and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So
could be the best player on the team.
He also had essentially the game-winning QB rush too. It wasn't a sack, but it was pretty damn close.
If he ends up being the number 1 linebacker in this class, again, wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. Like he could be just that weak side linebacker, gets on the field as fast as possible.
Class is super deep.
It's incredible at linebacker. And then my next one would be Reisz Vanderzee. I think, again, as we mentioned earlier, he's one of those guys that's just going to get faster because he's 6'5". He's just a young guy still. They're going to teach him how to run more technically. But when it comes to just like football speed, you saw a couple of times where he put his foot in the dirt and could go around a corner. He's got enough wiggle to him at his size. You could build him up to being a 6'5", 215 wide receiver where you're essentially operating as like kind of a bastard tight end, kind of a big receiver, fits into our run blocking game. He's going to go to the field early because he's going to have that size. Mm-hmm. And then you need the added dimension of a guy who can run a fade for you, can run a slant and be a big body over the middle. I think as you have, as you mentioned, Bowie is kind of that clone. He's going to have to beat out Bowie to make it on the field as that blocking true X receiver. But he has that raw, natural talent to him where I could see him making that leap over Bowie one day.
Yeah. All right, I'm up. I can't believe this guy fell this long. I almost had this guy at 4 one time. Chima. Yeah. I'm not going to say his last name. I'm not going to butcher it. Chinecki. I knew it. That's exactly what I was going to say. But his first 4 or 5 plays on his film, he flashes like NFL. It looks just like you want it to look. I think he's the Chauncey Golston path, where maybe he's not playing his first 3 years as a redshirt sophomore, but as a redshirt, or as a junior, redshirt, junior, senior, we'll see this guy become an all Big Ten player. And he's really raw right now. He has some plays on his film that you're like, that doesn't look like he's played enough football to this point. But man, he's got a great build, a great frame to put on, a good amount of weight. And 3 tech, strong side D end. Bell's going to have, this is a great second D end to have in this class.
Another multi-sport athlete in Texas. They got him out of Texas Tech's backyard,
which
is too
rare for Texas. Usually not multi-sport. They usually just football players, which hurts them.
Yeah, football and track. And he was potentially Oklahoma State, potentially Kansas, potentially Texas Tech. Yeah. Iowa got him.
Wow. Oklahoma State knocked on that door. That's a good sign.
Yeah,
very good defensive recruiting there.
Brevin Doll was they recruited him as a linebacker, their offer to him. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Minnesota saw him as a safety. So maybe there's that special teams where maybe that's where he comes in. Yeah, but next pick for me, man, I am going to take, this might surprise you guys. I'm going to take Devin Kennedy. He is another kid that's only played football he's only played for 2 years. He's the son of Jimmy Kennedy, a former first-round draft pick from Penn State. He was offered by Penn State, offered by Oregon State, and I think there was another Power 4 program in there. He was just full-on basketball because he didn't want to follow what his dad did. Then he played his junior year. You look at the film and it was not good. Stats were not good.
Yeah.
But he camps at Iowa, gets the offer, and what he did in the offseason was put on 50 pounds. And the secret, kids, is 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and a glass of whole milk every night before bed. That's what he told me.
Not a bad deal.
And so, right. And so you got that genetic pedigree. You got his numbers went up drastically, and he just showed unreal improvement from his junior to senior year. So I think that's probably a long-term pick. But I mean, the other three defensive linemen in this class look more like D end, 3 tech, and I think Devin can be that 1 tech for him.
Yeah, that's actually great pick. I didn't even think about the 1 tech, but he's kind of building towards that. And we need more 1 techs. Like we were walking here today, I was like, "There's not enough 1 techs."
Unless Campbell gets built up, which I could see them doing because I might pick him later, but Campbell's just so technically skilled already.
Yeah,
He's already playing Iowa scheme perfectly. He's exactly like the guy from last year. I can't remember his name now. Out of Colorado.
the D end.
Yeah. Brackney.
Yeah, Chase Brackney.
I was like,
Pronunciation,
I don't freaking know. Brackney. The other thing about Campbell too, before we get to him, doesn't know what position he's going to play between defensive end or defensive line, linebacker, and potentially offensive line.
Oh.
Really? Oh, I like that.
O-line would be great.
Yeah, that's great. This is actually, I think this is one of the few offensive tackles Iowa's landed in the last few years in terms of just athleticism. Bodie McCaslin, once again, that same area of Illinois. You just have the technique they have, the stance they come out of, and the one thing about him is he's super twitchy. Like he gets to the second level really easily in his junior year film. His get off or pass blocking is really good, but I think it's similar to Mason Richmond watching his film. And while I was really excited about Richmond, I think he's probably obviously the best tackle on Iowa's room right now. And there's not many offensive tackles. We play a lot of guards at tackles, even in our 2 deeps. It's kind of concerning. So that's why I think this guy can actually get on the field pretty early. But you turn on his defensive highlights. That's where you really see him flash. And his stance, his defensive stance, it looks like Van Ness. So he's got this bend to him and his get off. It looks like he could play D-line. And that's what you want to tackle. Guards, you see him move more like the classic, like high school offensive lineman. Tackles, you need this guy super twitchy because they got to block the ends and they got to reach for us as well. So I think this guy had some pretty high level offers, and I think it's one of the best Iowa tackle recruits we've gotten in the last few years. I think it's a really good sign to have 2 or 3 guys that we could see playing.
Yeah, exactly.
To chip in there, I think his dad played Division I football, coached Division I football.
That might be it.
Connected to Kansas, Coach Fuchs there. He had offers from Kansas State. I think, Missouri was in there, Minnesota, Nebraska, Penn State.
Big regional recruit.
Yeah, and Notre Dame was showing some pretty heavy interest before he committed to.
Yeah.
Wow.
He could turn out to be a very good
Well,
player.
I think outside of Dotzler, is there another tackle you like? Cannon Leonard, I guess, would be the other one. But
no, Dotzler's the only one in the last 3 classes other than this guy that
can really move.
Yeah, really move.
Yeah. Who's up now? Is it me?
I can see you, yeah.
You got 2.
2? The last 2, or is it?
If we're doing 15.
Yep, last 2.
Yeah, I'll take Drew Campbell then. It's funny watching his tape because you see whatever the Campbell brothers have is just zero fear at all.
Yeah.
And I think what you want, how I project him out is, at least when I was watching his tape, was a 3 tech, and immediately you go to Logan Lee. Guy was a fantastic player for Iowa over the last 3 or 4 years. The technical aspect of his game is next level. And you very rarely see defensive linemen who have the hand skill that he does.
Mm-hmm.
I think that just, you stack another 3 or 4 years of teaching and development. He's going to have the genetic background he needs. And then obviously just the way he was playing, you could tell he just was playing the system. And that is so imperative for that 3 technique, because you aren't trying to make plays. You are simply trying to lock out.
Mm-hmm.
The guy comes by, then you shuck and you make the play. But it's far more about playing the scheme rather than making your own stats. I think having a legacy guy like him in that spot is about as perfect as a fit as you can have. And then he's got the strength and athleticism size that you need for that position. So I think it's going to take some time for him because he's still only around 225, but it's going to be 60 pounds. Maybe you could even see him dropping down to the 1 technique if he can get super large. But
yeah,
I think 3 tech's where he ends up at. And I think that might be the 3 tech of this class.
And it's a classic Campbell. I'll play anywhere you want me. Like that, he loves Iowa football probably from his brother. He's like, I'll play O-line, D-line, linebacker. Put me where I can play.
I think it was close to 40 tackles for loss between his junior and senior year.
Jeez.
More than 20 his senior year.
And he's not overly quick. He's just that technical.
You can see it in his film too. He's mean.
Yeah, mean.
Yeah, mean.
Yeah.
Classic Campbell.
Yeah. You got one more pick?
I think it's the last one, isn't it?
Yeah.
We should take the punter, right?
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You got. We
That's
haven't taken
value
Preston
pick.
Reisz, though, haven't we? Or wait, we did.
Did I take Preston Reese? I can't remember if I did.
Yeah. I think you did actually.
I'll take
off my list.
I'll take the QB, but I'm just playing at receiver. I think that is the perfect route for him. I think the reason he was listed as a 4-star athlete or with 4 stars because of his potential at another position.
3-star
There's that
on
one
Rivals.
clip he posted last fall. I think it was the first game of the season he played where he breaks it out left and then it's just a one-cut move and then bursts to the hole. And it's like that's like a high-level D1 athlete.
Put him at safety.
But just play him somewhere else. And maybe that's why you grab Fitzgerald in the class after him.
Yeah.
Because they're like, hey, you might not have a future at QB, but gosh, we could use you in a lot of other places.
Yeah, definitely. Well, maybe like final takes on the class.
Just a couple guys I want to make sure we hit. We didn't take one of the 2 4-stars, Cody Fox.
Yeah.
Small town kid. I'll tell you this. Iowa was his first offer. They offered him right away. That was that's kind of a
Sophomore,
risk,
right?
Yeah, when you take him or when you offer that early. I think it was at the end of his freshman year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got that offer, committed right away. His older brother was a walk-on. Notre Dame wanted him bad. They were really pushing prior to his commitment, after his commitment, and he said, "Nope, I'm a Hawkeye." I texted all of the 24 commits after Brian Ferentz got that we were told they were moving on from him. And his response, and this is pretty much across the board, but Cody was the first one to respond. And he responded, "I'm not kidding," within seconds and said, "I'm a Hawkeye." And that was it.
Amazing.
And I really didn't get to have a ton of interaction with Cody other than that. Took some photos of state football and stuff like that too. But like you could tell that it was him and everybody else in Class A because 4-star tackle. And he would have been in the Rivals 250 for us if he didn't commit as a freshman.
Right.
That's just how it goes.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
And the only reason he didn't go
offers are what drive.
Exactly.
I think he could. You tell me he's a 3-year starter, I would believe you.
Yeah.
It just McCaslin and Nolan, the technique, like that high level football they're playing is what separates them. But you see the true talent in Fox. He holds 290, 280 like it's nothing.
Yep.
He only needs 10 more pounds, and it doesn't look like he's nearly 300.
What a gift, though, too, for 3 good old linemen. I mean, the O-line has just been a weak room for a long time. And that's what if we're talking about initial takeaways from the class. Doll gives you some opportunity to get behind guys.
Yeah.
Parker gives you a security over the middle. You have an O-line class that you can build around. The offense of Grant, I'm glad they moved away from Brian, but he kind of left it in a nice spot, at least from a recruiting perspective.
Which is surprising.
It's amazing how
We
well
got a few more kids you want to talk about.
Yes. Well, the one thing I'll note on Fox too is he did play defensive line as well in high school, and he punted. He was their punter.
There's actually a good amount of punters.
Really?
Gavin Hoffman had
Weisskopf?
Weisskopf punts?
Gavin
Hoffman punts?
Hoffman had some punting highlights.
Yeah,
You can motion him in.
there's one more too, I swear.
I must have missed the Hoffman, but I knew Weisskopf was a punter. I think Fox averaged like 36 yards per punt
Banging it.
as an offensive lineman, which is
1A punter.
right. And then Rashad Godfrey out of Armwood, that's a football factory in Florida. He committed. I'm not sure exactly like what date or whatever he committed, but prior to that Iowa offer, it was group of 5 pretty much across the board. He might have gotten another Power 4 interest or offer in there, and it just didn't, take. Which sometimes that's how it goes. Coaches show up and offer the kid and never talk to him again. And with Rashad, he committed, and then he got an offer from Oregon State, Kansas State. I'm forgetting who the third school was. Louisville. And there were rumors that he was going to go on a visit. He ended up not. He just took his visit to Iowa in the fall, stuck to his commitment. And, there's that same thing happened with Michael Burt when he got his offer from Iowa. Yeah. Literally, I swear, within like half an hour, got an offer from Minnesota, Illinois, and I think Nebraska.
Yeah. It was crazy. It was like
Nebraska's where he took the official as well. And he's a Nebraska kid. I think he grew up in Omaha area, Creighton Prep, and ended up choosing Iowa. So similar situation for both of them. Other programs. Oh, Iowa offered. We got to get on him too.
Especially for those 2 rooms, DB and tight end. If those rooms offered, Parker or our tight end room offers, you're like, oh, someone else is doing our work for us. Like they know more than
They
we
do such a good job of keeping guys quiet, though.
Yeah.
And that is like why you usually don't see Iowa have super high level rivals or 247 recruiting classes, is because they just keep it quiet.
Yep.
And it's tough for guys who are sitting reviewing 400 kids. If you don't have offers behind your name, can you go out and watch tape and then also stake your name. This guy's actually a 4-star player.
Right.
Yeah. So it's probably why you see Iowa recruiting fall. But now we just saw Tier 1 teams get released for NCAA football. Iowa Hawkeyes up there. I mean, they're paying them money.
I think Godfrey could make us look silly for not drafting him.
Yeah. I saw some stuff on his senior year film. I was like, ooh.
Playing in that zone and
And
he could be a corner too. He's that big guy where it's like, most teams will recruit him at safety, but in that cover 4 off scheme, if you can have a guy you can put his face through someone at corner and he's going to blow up receivers.
Open field tackler.
It's hard to evaluate those guys too, because the talent, like you said, football factory, the entire conference is football factory.
Yep.
Every single kid on that field's sniffing D1.
Yep.
And so you have a really hard time, like Patterson, running back that's currently at Iowa. He was playing for Deerfield, and his film was just like 20-yard runs, 15-yard runs. But like you're playing against 61 kids, so you're going to look a little slower. And so I think Godfrey, if there's one kid, I kept on asking Connor, you watch enough of Godfrey? Because he's kind of like a sneaky film. There's not a lot of splashy plays, but we could look pretty silly pretty quick if he's all of a sudden I play against Florida kids.
It's hard for us to wrap our heads around as Iowa kids too. It's like there's the one D1 athlete and he's so much better than everybody else. And watching Florida film, it's kind of hard to pick him out.
It's very difficult to interpret that correctly.
Yeah.
But I think the only kids we've missed out on talking about, Josh Janowski, hit Xavier Williams a little bit, that LaShawn Daniels comp.
Yep.
And then Reisz Dakin. I'll talk about Janowski first. To me, he's probably a depth piece. Yeah. He's an early enrollee, played at Lincoln Way East, which is another powerhouse in Chicago, 7A. So it's the biggest level you can play at. Playing with a bunch of other kids who are probably going to play Division I football. Early enrollee. So, I mean, who knows? Like with the offensive line development, he's going to be a guard.
Yeah.
Guard
or center.
Maybe center.
Yeah. You'd like him just to be a little quicker at his size. Right.
Yep.
That's the only that's like holding you back from putting him higher.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And then to Xavier Williams, I think the LaShawn Daniels. When I first started watching him, I was like, Sean Green? And then I was like, maybe not. Maybe not the Doak Walker comparison.
Well, first play of his junior year highlight film is like Saquon Barkley.
Right.
He jump cuts 4 guys in the house to call you like, is this the best running back we've ever got? Right. And then the rest of the highlight film happens. You're like, good player.
Yeah.
Could see the field as a junior, stacked room, but could be the power back in this class. And could play for
there's a lot of value in a guy his size with that lateral ability.
Puts his head down, too.
Puts his head down, no fear. And how Iowa football has built their team is just it sucks to play them. And he's a running back, it sucks to play.
Yeah.
So he could find his way in, especially talk about the running back recruits we've recruited over the past 3 or 4 years that are on the team. Not a lot of strict power guys.
Yeah.
So having a guy that you can have, be a short yardage back one day could definitely get on the field in that way. I think you just don't have a lot of versatility with him, especially if you're going to move to more of a, we'll see with Tim Frederick last year, we don't know, but it could be more of a open up scheme. Yeah.
As far as Reisz Dakin goes, bombs, like that's, I mean, what
6
more
second
can you
hang
say,
time.
right? Yeah, exactly.
And it's going to be, it's different from Taylor. Taylor had that in his bag where he could go to the bomb ball. You think about the gopher punt this year that almost won us the game, should have won us the game. But he was more of a placement guy, and that's why he went in the 4th round of the NFL drafts, because the freakiest placement.
Yeah.
If you had some random guy tune in who followed football but didn't know about Iowa football, watch. I mean, think back to our friends Texas from the 2021 Penn State game. They're like, who is this punter? He's putting it within the 7 every time. And a lot of times he put it in the 2 or 1.
Yeah.
And it's a quarterback. So it's just a different style of punter, but if you're backed up, having to do with just a rock in the legs,
bombing them. Yeah.
Huge.
The thing I'll say about this decision to bring Reese in from Pro Kick Australia, obviously there's that relationship with Iowa. The state of Iowa had the number 1 punter in the country in Drew Miller. He's going to Georgia. Iowa chose to offer Reisz Dakin a scholarship instead of
telling.
Drew, he's a 3. Rivals never gives kicker punters 3 stars. Drew Miller got 3 stars, going to Georgia on scholarship. And I saw it in that game that I watched between Preston and Drew. It was Monticello versus Mediapolis, and there are a couple punts where I was like, what the hell is Iowa doing? And then you see Reisz Dakin punt. It's like, okay, man, that makes sense. But I that's probably the most telling thing about what they see in Reese.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Definitely.
Yeah, that is number one punter in your backyard, and you go.
And he grew up an Iowa fan. His dad's on our
boards,
boards.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
Yeah. What do you think? Want to wrap it up there? Or do you want to?
I think maybe we just save the 2025 talk for next year.
Do you want to? Or
Cool.
we hop on your guys' podcast?
Yeah.
And we do a
Yeah.
2025 talk and.
The one thing I will say that I wanted to make sure we hit on in terms of, you mentioned Reisz. You got Jimmy Sullivan in 2025.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw so I screenshotted his Instagram story and put it on Twitter of Tim Lester and John Budmeyer went to watch him throw. I don't know if you guys saw that,
No.
but Lester is in that picture with a huge smile on his
Really?
face. And it's like, oh, we got a guy. We got a guy coming. And that's what I see in Jimmy Sullivan too. I mean, one thing, he was at the Elite 11 in Columbus, and
I didn't realize he's Elite 11.
our national analyst, Greg Smith, went and watched him. He said, we're used to seeing statues at quarterback for Iowa, and that is not the case with Jimmy
Really?
Sullivan.
He can really run.
He can
He's got-
sling it too.
He's got the best film of a QB in the last 8 years. Like
He just reminds me of it's not a knock, 'cause I actually did like Padilla when he did play. He's just a big Padilla.
he is.
Like he's got that same level of like arm talent where it's not going to blow you out of the gym, but it's like certainly D1 level. But then he's just a freak athlete.
Yep.
And like you compare those two together, and you can start extrapolating what this is going to look like under Tim, and he might be the perfect guy.
And you don't need a free QB under Tim.
No.
You need a point guard.
Yep.
Is it rhythmic? Does it come out in time? Is he smart? Is he thinking about the offense correctly? If he has those attributes, his arm doesn't need to be gigantic because it's actually going to be throws over the middle generally. So I think, I don't know, that's exciting to think about.
Which is why Brendan Sullivan was a good addition out of the
Yeah,
portal
exactly.
too.
Yeah.
Which we don't have to get into that right now. But
Yeah.
Another thing.
Yeah.
Well, Eliot, really appreciate you coming on. Awesome time. It went about as well as we possibly could have asked. I'm sure we'll have you back for years in the future.
It's got to be an annual thing. We'll
Yeah,
just do the annual
definitely.
recruiting class. Maybe
And-
we'll come down to you one time.
You guys will be on Hawkeyes sooner rather than
Yes,
later. I
yes.
promise. Yeah.
Well,
Really
yeah,
appreciate
we
that.
will make that happen.
That'd be
Yeah.
great.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.